Our work is to lead economic development for the 9-parish area, and we've been doing so aggressively now for a decade. We are a 9-parish economic development organization. As you can see on the map, the region surrounds East Baton Rouge Parish. We have a population of some 815,000 people as of the last numbers from the census, and we have worked with economic development partners in the 9-parish area over the last decade. For those of you who have been watching this, it's going to be impressive to think back that it has been a decade now since our board of directors took a turn in our organizational strategy. Back in 2003, there was a canvas trip to Austin, Texas, where business leaders came back and recognized that the Austin Chamber was much more of a driving force in regional economic development than the Baton Rouge area chamber. The idea of regionalism itself was a foreign concept in our metro, and something that our organization, starting in 2004, 10 years ago, began the course of reinventing economic development for our region. And here we are today, a decade later, looking at consistent results in economic development over the last few years. And largely, we want to come back to the map every time and say that if it weren't for the partnership of our 9 parishes and being able to recognize the strength individually that each of the parishes offer our economic development strategy, we would not necessarily be as successful as we have been. We are in a historic period of economic development right now. What we've seen happening in Louisiana and for our Baton Rouge metro area, we have not seen in decades. But in the last 10 years, if we go back to that period of time since our reinvention as an organization, we've seen a couple of interesting facts. One, we are at a center of engineering talent. We've increased in the metro area the number of jobs, of engineering jobs in the metro area by 17%. The number of graduates who are graduating with engineering fields has also increased by 17% in the last decade. The concept of regionalism has taken root, and we are working cooperatively not only as the 9-parish metropolitan region, but as the map shows you, more significantly toward the idea of super-regionalism and how we partner with the greater New Orleans region and the Lafayette region to see that we can all work together collaboratively for economic development. Those ideas now have taken root in our organizational strategy, and we see them year in and year out. I wanted to make sure to refresh for you our 5-year strategy, as we do for our investors every time we sit down with them, is to make sure we say what it is we are going to do, what we said we would do, and what we intend to continue to do over the course of the 5-year period. In 2011, we kicked it off to push for these 6 core strategies for economic development, some which we were already doing, and our investors told us to continue to do them, some which we had not yet done in our economic development strategy. And we saw organizations around the country doing these and doing these well, and we had not yet really embarked in that strategy of economic development yet. And we've been increasing our strategy in those areas more and more. So to refresh those for you, first, of course, is job creation, to work with existing companies and attracting new companies to the metropolitan region to attract and grow high-wage jobs in high-wage sectors from great companies that we can see expand here. We've wanted to, second, increase our strategy around international development. We saw metropolitan areas, major markets like the Baton Rouge area, with very significant presence in international work, and yet the Baton Rouge area and Louisiana had not really had a strategy for attracting foreign direct investment. And so in 2011, we kicked off a new strategy, and we said we would walk slowly into this, learn from our experiences, and every year increase our efforts to attract foreign direct investment, and we've been seeing results in that. Third is to increase our efforts as an organization to support entrepreneurship and innovation in our metro. With a major flagship research university, with Pennington, with Southern, with the assets that we have, we know we have the base of talent to build an entrepreneurial core here, and we had seen great incubators supporting that. What we wanted to do was add a layer of support from our organization to build in the gaps, to address things like seed capital, public policy at the state level around innovation, and we've been working aggressively on that for the last few years. We recognized also with global branding, our 4th strategy, that we had less of a brand identity than did New Orleans. When you think of us internationally, barely have they heard of the Baton Rouge area, compared to having heard of, maybe heard of Louisiana, but for sure they've heard of New Orleans. And we've recognized it's not that we have a bad reputation internationally or even nationally, it's that there oftentimes is no reputation, and we are building from scratch to create an identity and to define for our clients and for our potential companies, what is the strength, what are the dynamics of the Baton Rouge area market. And so our marketing team really works aggressively on this with our business development team. Fifth, around talent development, we heard from our business investors that one of the challenges to growth in the Baton Rouge area for existing companies as well as for attracting firms is the need not only to find a skilled workforce, but specifically to find access to high-level, mid-level, senior-level professional talent, executive talent. And so we've been building a strategy to work with existing companies as well as work with our economic development partners to help them find and attract the talent to this market by helping them tell the story of the Baton Rouge area, similar to the way that we do in recruiting companies to help them recruit people. And then sixth is to work to continue to improve our regional competitiveness. What we recognize is that we have things that hold us back from a public policy perspective that we continue to have to improve, and if we don't address those, they can be inhibitors to business investment. And so our board and our staff continue to work year in and year out to address things of public policy around K-12 education, transportation, higher education, innovation, you name it. We'll go into some of those. Those are the 6 things that we say to our investors we're going to be working on over these 5 years through 2015. There are a few trends, of course, that help us in our work. The most significant of which is the price of natural gas. As the slide shows you, there was a significant drop in that price in 2008, 2009, and we have been benefiting from that price significantly in our economic development work. And we're going to continue to press that advantage. But if you went back 5, 6 years ago in 2008, when I started in this role and said that we would be aggressively going after our core industry of chemical manufacturing to see new opportunity versus defending the declines that we've been facing for years, you would have called me crazy if I had said that 5, 6 years ago. Well, today we see advantages and opportunities not just to expand what we have, but to attract new firms. And we've seen now 2 years, 2012 and 2013, of new chemical manufacturing facilities and significant expansions of that. The Department of Energy just came out last month with a forecast that says that between now, or between 2012 and the year 2040, there's going to be a 56% increase in production of natural gas in the U.S. because of the benefits significantly of hydraulic fracturing and shale gas manufacturing or production in the U.S. The economy of the Baton Rouge area and of the Gulf Coast is the significant beneficiary of the permanent jobs that get produced from that activity. That doesn't necessarily happen, though, without an economic development strategy to help support the industries that are here and to attract new opportunities from that activity. Amazingly, they said that over the course of that time, natural gas is going to replace coal as the #1 producer of electricity in the U.S. Between now and 2040. So not only is it an opportunity for us right now and in the decade that we are in, but it is a very long-term horizon of opportunity that we have. And because of that, our core industry has significant opportunities to continue to increase. We had in 2013 a historic year in economic development. And I want to take a few moments just to tell you the scenario of this. We set a goal last year of $48 million in direct permanent payroll. Probably the most important indicator of our success every year is the amount of new payroll announced through project activities that our business development team works across our 9-parish area. These 15 projects announced a total not of $48 million in direct payroll, which was our goal, but $112 million, actually $112.5 million in permanent direct payroll through the projects the jobs that these companies announced over the course of last year. And the incredible thing of that is that it is capping a couple of years of activity. We saw a goal of $40 million in payroll last year, and we saw the outcome of $78 million in payroll last year. So the 2 years combined, we've had $190 million in direct permanent payroll announced through projects in the last 2 years. 28 projects announced across the entire 9-parish area, incredibly just shy of $8 billion in capital investment from those 28 projects that were announced. And the activity coming from that is what we see creating a boom across the entire 9-parish area economy over the years to come, as those permanent jobs, as the construction activity, as we feel that spread and ripple across the entire economy. The other thing to highlight about this slide, as you can see in the background, is the story of the projects themselves. The IBM project, of course, has been talked about quite a bit, and a lot of the end-of-the-year wrap-up stories, not only for the Baton Rouge area, but for the state of Louisiana. It represents not only for our region, but for the diversification of the economy into software and software development, a very high growth industry nationally, forecast over the next 20 years to continue to grow at one of the highest rates in the U.S. One of the reasons we wanted to tap into it. What's incredible about that story is IBM comes on the heels of a number of years of success in this. From EA back in 2008, last year in 2012, Emeritus Technologies, Pixamondo, an expansion of PreSonus, and this past year, the completion of the Louisiana Digital Media Center on the main campus of LSU, where EA now is the full floor, the top floor of that facility on the main campus, where the first two floors are academic for LSU and the Center for Computation and Technology, and the top floor is now EA. We're seeing a transformation of our economy to be able to go after software like we haven't been able to, and is of course capped with the story of IBM. Couple that with existing companies like Dow, like Honeywell, like BASF, doing significant expansions here in the Baton Rouge area. Many of those projects were competed not only between us and Texas and other Gulf Coast states, but internationally, that we had to compete with a lot of other places to win those. Not just done for new manufacturing like Methanex, but for existing companies that make a decision at the corporate level where they're going to place those investments. And those are very competitive projects and ones we have worked hard to secure this year. We also saw companies like Jogler and Cortec and Genesis bringing new facilities, smaller facilities that are in the value chain and the supply chain of energy, of chemical manufacturing, and of specialty products manufacturing, a valve manufacturer, a gauge manufacturer, the supply chain of energy that Genesis brings. These are companies we competed to win, and our team worked aggressively to locate. As small as 10 jobs in some cases, 150 jobs in some other cases, and then companies like, of course, the 800 job project with IBM. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the story of CB&I. As we were entering the year last year, there was a big overhang question of whether the Shaw Group acquisition would lead to a disruption in our economy and a moving of jobs from here, perhaps to the Woodlands or other places throughout the U.S. Or globally. Instead, what we heard from the company, and we all, of course, went to the Woodlands as soon as the announcement was made in 2012 to ask them, of course, to expand here rather than contract here. And we saw, of course, that happen. 400 jobs committed, and now if you go to Town Center, you see the CB&I logo on the old State Farm building there by the Whole Foods store. The cool part about that story is it anchors the jobs in a core industry that we see a significant opportunity in for the future. We also continue to work on economic competitiveness issues, and I want to highlight some of the most important parts of our strategy that happened last year. We worked aggressively, having heard from our Small Business Council that the concern about the income tax proposal from the governor last year was going to force us to make sure that we evaluated it, we understood it, we looked for opportunities within it to restructure the tax code for our competitive advantage. But what we heard more and more was first protect and defend the pro-business tax code that Louisiana has. Make sure that we don't lose the advantages that we already have in the tax code or see any business tax increases. And there was a moment in time where the House of Representatives briefly flashed an idea of an increase in business taxes that we and other organizations aggressively communicated the need to pull back on, that we wanted to make sure we didn't lose the advantages of our economy by making changes. We were hopeful of things like sales tax payment consolidation happening last year. We were aggressively pushing for a reduction in the business franchise tax and elimination we hoped for with offsets from the tax exemptions that the state has. None of those things came to pass, but we learned a lot about where we are. We had a lot of volunteer hours spent helping us understand the proposal and what we hope to see as advantages in the future from that knowledge, that we can hopefully find ways to continue to restructure the tax code in the future. We do need to do things still. There is no need to simply put that away. There are things we do need to do in the corporate income tax. The level of corporate income tax charged in Louisiana is still an outlier in how high it is. But we are at least pleased that at the end of the year, no harm was done. We also saw some exciting things happen in a couple of other categories. In entrepreneurship, and I saw Stephen Loy here in the audience, the Research Park Corporation worked with us to continue down the path of Step 1 Ventures implementation. This is a seed capital organization that was set up last year out of a planning work that we did in 2012. And they hired a new CEO in November of last year named Jean Bayless, someone who is very exciting, and we hope that y'all will get to know her. The promise of actually building a new seed capital organization for the Baton Rouge area and for Louisiana Louisiana promises to lead to new early-stage investments in companies coming out of our universities, emerging technology companies, new manufacturers. What we expect to see is that access to capital changes the landscape of entrepreneurship and innovation, and hopefully led by the role that Step 1 Ventures can play. We led a super region canvas trip this past year, again emphasizing the importance of super regionalism more. 170 business people went on a trip to Orlando and Tampa last year, and the reason why that's so compelling is that it had not been done before, not here as far as we know, not anywhere, to see two regions do an intercity benchmarking trip together. In fact, Lafayette joined us. We had 10 folks from Lafayette come on the trip as well, and as they said on the trip, one dude from Homa. We're not sure exactly, but it was exciting to see that this led to a new level of partnership, that the regions are starting to talk about the strengths of economic development in a new and different way, not just talking about it, but building deep relationships, and we're committed to implementing some of the outcomes of that trip in the course of 2014. On talent development, we worked really to mature the program of talent last year. We got 500 resumes in our talent database by the end of the year. One of our goals was to build the database of talent that we've identified outside of Louisiana who have said, for the right opportunity, I would relocate back to Louisiana, back to Baton Rouge, to access the new opportunities that are there. We've been working with the LSU Alumni Association, the Southern Alumni Federation, high schools around the metro area to help get the word out that if you're interested in relocating back to Louisiana, we're trying to get you back here too. We would love to have the help of any of you in the audience to help promote the story of this by accessing that talent. It helps us in economic development to be able to shorten the timeline for identifying that talent. Our team also worked with existing employers to convince 13 folks to relocate to the Baton Rouge area this past year, people that came back that they had been identified as new talent that could come. It's a small victory, of course, but it is a signifier of what we can do when we work with existing companies, recruiting companies, manufacturers, and other firms to help them tell the story of the Baton Rouge area. And that also played a key role in our win with CB&I, where they were trying to tell the story of the Baton Rouge area, and they're recruiting back of a lot of the teams and employees from around the country when they were doing consolidations. We were proud to be a part of leading that story. We worked over 2 weekends to put together recruiting packages for the folks that they were trying to relocate back to the Baton Rouge area or to the Baton Rouge area. And a key reason we started the talent development program was to be more competitive directly in our economic development work. Under education, we were pleased to see the EBR School Board adopt the community-led strategic plan that they had written. We hope that that lays the foundation for reforms to come in the future, and we are excited to see some of those changes perhaps be able to put into place this year. Under transportation, we worked with 4 parish presidents over the course of the last 2 years, 2012 and 2013, to assess the Metropolitan Planning Organization. This is one of those organizations that is not much known about, but they are the key organization in thinking about the challenges of traffic congestion, one of our significant challenges in the region. This organization was one we've long wanted to see performing at a higher level, and we were very pleased to see the 4 parish presidents last year come together. They recruited a new director. We're hopeful for where that organization can go in the future under new leadership and as they're restructuring. We also saw a very challenged year for the organization that runs transit for our region. No surprise to anybody, and all of our disappointment in how that organization really did not necessarily take the opportunity after the tax election to lead the change that they had the opportunity to do. What we saw last year in our efforts was an opportunity to focus aggressively on outsourcing. And we pushed aggressively behind the scenes on contracted management, and at the end of the year you saw contracted management engaged, and what we hope for this year now is for that professional firm to come in and lead the implementation at a higher, more professional level in ways we hope to see and we've hoped to see for a long time. We also saw the Metro Council adopt a new qualifications review process for how they select board members for CATS, something that we think not only can help CATS, but could be a precursor of better board selection for all of the boards and commissions in East Baton Rouge Parish in the future, potentially. And then lastly, around crime, our crime council was very concerned about the murder rate that we saw in the Baton Rouge area in 2012, and began advocating for changes, but most significantly, supporting the leadership that were pushing for the BRAVE program, and couldn't have been happier to see the headlines on January 2nd that at the end of the year it was a 22% reduction in the murder rate that happened last year as a result of that great program. And I think the incredible part of that is the collaboration that has been led by the mayor's office and across the criminal justice system between the sheriff, the DA, the police chief, and the state leadership that we have in participation in that. We want to continue to see success in that. It's an incredible level of success, though, that they've seen already. The beneficiaries of economic development significantly have been the growth of business establishments in the Baton Rouge area. We did this slide in the Economic Outlook presentation we did a couple of months ago, and I wanted to share it again because as we talk about the results of what we've seen in economic development this past year and the last few years, the significant beneficiaries of that have been new firms being established in the Baton Rouge area. Between 2008 and 2012, there was a 10% increase in the number of small businesses in the Baton Rouge area. Those firms that have between 2 and 9 employees, there were 15,000 more small businesses, those businesses with between 2 and 9 employees, 15,000 more of them between 2008 and 2012, a period when we saw declines in government jobs, increases in private sector jobs, a period of economic development success, but overall we saw kind of a flat economy for a number of years. But we did see expansions in the number of firms in the Baton Rouge area, and the good part of that story is as economic development activity has been happening, there have been new firms added in the metro area, and we hope for that to continue to happen in the future. Our forecast for the 2014 was that we would see about 2.3% growth in jobs in the Baton Rouge area. We saw growth last year. It's coming. We saw kind of flat employment levels overall in the prior years, but we are now moving into a period of expansion, and we have great optimism about where we are this year and going forward into next year. If the forecast holds true, 8,700 new jobs would be added by the end of this year, and probably around 2% growth if that holds out. In 2015, we would see somewhere between 16,000 and 17,000 new jobs added over that 2-year period. What was also impressive in last year's data was that the Baton Rouge area set a record number of jobs last year in the Baton Rouge area economy. We not only erased the losses of the recession that our metropolitan area saw, the declines we had seen, but we actually reached a new level, a historic level of employment in the Baton Rouge area, first in April and then again in October in the numbers that occurred. So we were very optimistic in the forecasts. As you can see, the range of expectations between 1.6% growth and what Dr. Scott forecasts, 3.3% growth, our expectation is somewhere in the middle will actually occur. We want to talk about 4 things that we think we got to press on for the next year in our economic development strategy. And what we're going to be releasing here this week is our economic development strategy for the year, and I'll highlight 4 of those areas. In our business development strategy, we see an opportunity to keep the pedal to the floor and drive the acceleration of growth in the metropolitan area. We increased our target last year by 20% in payroll, and we're doing so again this year. Our goal is to set $57 million in new direct payroll from jobs in the Baton Rouge area, hopefully through 1,000 at least new jobs added in the metropolitan area economy. 4 strategies we want to aggressively change in our own internal work. First is to go back and look at how we do business retention and expansion. Every year we call on about 150 companies in the Baton Rouge area to work with existing companies on expansion and growth here and to make sure we don't lose opportunities that we might otherwise see here, otherwise going to other markets. What we want to look at is not only the visitation program continuing, but adding to that we work with existing companies on opportunities for growth. Oftentimes our visits are primarily looking for where there is an expansion already planned or a potential relocation that we want to try to address. But we also want to look for opportunities to provide value-added consulting, where they're challenged by workforce, where they're looking for new opportunities to partner for growth. We see a way to continue to reinvent this practice of business retention and expansion to help our existing companies more and more during this period of economic growth that we're seeing. Second is to push aggressively on our corporate lead generation strategy. Last year we did 3 lead generation trips in the U.S. And 4 internationally. We actually use outside firms to help us do a lot of our lead generation meetings. We're going to be increasing that more this year. And the 3 sectors we're focused on aggressively, first in chem manufacturing and new energy. Second, continuing to push in software design to attract more opportunity with the success that we've seen. And third is to push more into the area of opportunity we've called technical research and consulting, which is a lot of sectors that get caught in that, but it is significantly engineering industry, research practices, and the science around that. And so what did we see last year at the end of the year? The water campus announcement was probably one of the most exciting announcements toward the end of the year that creates new opportunities for our regional economy. What we see is an opportunity at BRAC to work with the partners that have been building the coastal engineering and coastal restoration strategy for Louisiana to attract additional coastal science, nonprofit research groups, new engineering firms that work in this practice and can export those skills internationally. We also want to work with existing companies in the Baton Rouge area and across Louisiana to participate in what's happening at the Water Institute and on the water campus to see that there's a private sector side to the strategy that is so exciting that's come out from the state. Between $30 and $45 million of investment being made as a part of the commitment that was made to build the water campus, and we see a significant opportunity to take that asset and market it for new firm growth. The way that we've seen software become an opportunity for diversification of our economy, we see an opportunity around coastal engineering as well. Again, on certified sites, the Baton Rouge Area Chamber has been aggressively going after additional certification of sites. We certified 8 last year. We did 8 the prior year, and we are committed to doing another 8 to 10 certified sites this year. We've invested a lot of time, a lot of resources to doing this, and right now I'm proud to say that the Baton Rouge Area Chamber is leading the state in submission of certified sites to the State Economic Development Office. The reason that's so important is the velocity of deals is increasing. And we've seen that if we don't have access to certified sites to submit when we get a request for a proposal from companies, we do not have the opportunity to win them. The first step is to have a qualified site that meets the needs. And so our team has been working aggressively across the 9 parishes with our economic development partners to talk to landowners, to help them assemble sites, and then to take them through that very complex process of site certification. And one that's been working very well, and we're going to increase. We're also going to focus more next year on commercial buildings. The building that IBM is in today on Essen Lane was one of the few buildings of its size that we had to offer that is a commercial building that was available for back office operations, IT, software support. We want to do more of an assessment this year and looking at the availability of commercial buildings and see where there is more opportunity to work with the developers and redevelopment offices to bring more of those facilities online and get them certified through the state process. And as I mentioned, we're going to continue to expand our international work. Last year, we did 4 foreign direct investment recruiting trips. We expect to push that aggressively this year toward 5, continuing to see the same foreign markets we've been going after as the ones we want to go after again this year, focusing aggressively on Germany, the UK, and Canada, where we've seen an alignment between chemical industry, software, and other engineering firms, where we've had some successes in foreign direct investment already. We want to go after more of those in that sector, those areas. Under public policy work, I would say workforce is the issue, not just for the Baton Rouge area, but for the entire state of Louisiana for this year and for the next few years to come.